Well, hello again. Today, the footage is going to be of the process of assembling the rest of the boxes. So this is the parts that I started with. There's a couple of equipment boxes and some full range faces and sides, all kinds of other pieces parts. So we'll get into this and get it all figured out and sorted and get the construction side of things moving along here. The process is, for the most part, pretty straightforward, and I mean, you've seen a little bit of it already with the first box that was constructed. I did get smart and had Emily come out, and she helped me do the sub boxes because they get a little bit unwieldy once you start to try and put them together. But even though the screws that I'm using are self-drill, or self-tapping, the plywood is a big enough challenge that I decided it'd be easiest to just pre-drill all of the holes anyway, and that way it actually makes it easier with the glue up, because then when you actually get the glue in place, you've already got screws and you can just zip through them. So that actually works out really well. And this is one of those little braces that I was trying to figure out. Sorry for the shaky adjustments here, but I realized that no matter what I do, I'm going to be really in the way of where the camera is, and I realized that that could easily be solved by the fact that this tripod can actually be raised up pretty notably. It was actually purchased with the intent of taking pictures of the solar eclipse this just last month, actually. Wow, that's been a month already. Life didn't work out to the point where we could go see that as planned. A lot of other things ended up happening over the last 12 over the last 12 months, and we had a trip that we were planning on taking to go out to Arkansas. I found a lake that is surrounded by forest, and I thought it would be cool to have. So, backtracking a little bit, when the solar eclipse passed through in 2017, a group of friends went up to a campground in Idaho, and apparently we were one of the lucky few who didn't get hosed over. We heard a lot of horror stories about people who would book their campgrounds, and then 2 months before, the campground was like, "Oh, well, this is a high demand thing, so we're raising our prices, and you either have to we're going to cancel your reservation if you don't pay this new price." And I think if that would have happened to us, I probably would have got the attorney generals involved for price gouging and whatever, because I don't know. Anyway, yeah, we didn't have to deal with that. So we had our place booked 6 months in advance, and they didn't change their prices. They didn't change their availability. It was a good campground. It was actually a really good campground. I was rather pleased with that. But they did overbook all of their common area fields and stuff. They ended up making temporary campsites for it and stuff. So they took advantage of the eclipse by all means, but they didn't try and host people over and gouge people. But anyway, so we were there, and we got a really awesome photo. Um, I might have to, maybe I'll see if I can find it actually and put it in here. I don't know that it'll work very well because it's a full 360 panoramic photo, but it's you basically have sunrise everywhere you looked, and it was a really cool photo. But I had the thought when I was looking at it one day, was like, man, I wish this didn't have people in it. Wish it didn't have telephone poles and tents and vehicles and people and chairs, and it would just be cool if it was like maybe on the water or something. And so I have this idea that I want to be at a solar eclipse out in the middle of a lake surrounded by hills and forests and be able to get a panoramic view of that. I don't know if the picture would be worth anything other than just to be a cool picture to have, but that's my goal. So I actually found a lake that would have worked. It was covered in trees around the shoreline. It was right in the path of totality. It would have given me 4 minutes to take the panoramic picture and still get some shots of of other stuff. Although we bought a camera specifically for this purpose, and then we bought a second one for Emily, because my version of sharing is usually, well, this one's mine, here, this one's yours. She gets a kick out of that, although it does get kind of expensive. It does produce some redundancy. We have a laptop. We had the same laptop, which was great because I could pick up either laptop and it didn't matter. Everything, the feel, the handling of it was all the same. So that was pretty awesome. But mine happened to be running a game and apparently got covered with a blanket or something. I don't know exactly what happened, but it overheated and fried the motherboard, fried the graphics card, fried the processor. I tried to do some repairs on it, and that didn't work, and it ended up just becoming toast. So we now use hers, Emily's laptop, as both of our laptop until life gets a little better and we can find a decent replacement. But I'm going to be picky next time because, like, the things I think a laptop should have, apparently laptop manufacturers don't think it needs anymore, like several USB ports or a CD DVD drive or a long-lasting battery, or just, I don't know. Laptops in the last few years, 20, 15 years, have just gotten kind of crappy, in my opinion. I had to hunt to try and find a decent laptop that had all the features that I wanted, and that was in 2017, I think, when we bought those laptops. So I don't know, but anyway, yeah. So the idea was that I would be on the lake to get the panoramic photo, and then Emily could use the other camera to actually take photos of the actual eclipse of the sun and the moon. So we'll try that again someday. I think the next total eclipse is that would be available to do that is in I think it was another 3 years away or something like that. I'd have to look at the space and time, or time and date website. It's pretty cool because you can actually look at like estimations of where the path is going to go, and like where you're at compared to the totality, and time of day that it's actually going to be. It's pretty in depth. It's a pretty cool website. So yeah, but anyway, so like I said, that didn't happen. Although squirrel, because now I can't remember why I was bringing that up. So yeah, well, back to this. those braces make it pretty easy. And you can see I'm not shy about putting in a few screws to make sure that the box doesn't move. And now that I've kind of worked out a lot of the details, like these actually are going pretty quick. So these last three of them really only took a couple of hours to assemble the box itself. And even the subs, as awkward as they were, I think they only took a little over a couple of hours for the two of us to do the same thing, same process. There were a few other things that we had to figure out differently because the bracing was different. For instance, on the full range boxes, I'm only concerned with just trying to brace them to make sure the sides are as rigid as possible, whereas the subs, I know from personal experience that when you get a good bass beat going, if the box is big enough that you can lay down on it, that's a pretty good massage. It's quite an enjoyable experience to lay down on a good sub box. So I know I will be at different times taking advantage of that feature, and like I made sure the braces were running vertically in that one for that purpose, just to make sure that there's as much support as possible. But then there's also a couple of braces internally that I put in there so that the front and back of the speaker around the actual woofer are as stable and solid as possible. So just a little bit of little minor differences. But yeah, mostly just the awkwardness was the only real challenge. And the glue is, I don't remember if I mentioned this or not. The glue is a insurance, I guess, to help make sure the box is sealed as much as possible, and as well as just helping to guarantee that everything is as solid as possible. We never had any problems with any of the boxes that I built before, and they were never built with glue, mostly because the idea I think that past me had was we're going to be gluing carpet to it, so we're literally sealing it in a layer of rubber. So as far as structural functionality goes, that is sufficiently strong, and I mean it did work really quite well. So we'll just, I don't know how to really test to see if that's actually gonna make a difference or not, but anyway, this is the braces that I ended up using. For the full range speakers, I just cut some bracing out of some of the therefor scraps that I have available. And as I was doing it, they didn't feel as dry as I would like, and I didn't want that moisture inside the speaker box to just hang out there. So the little braces and stuff I was able to just take and put them in our little toaster oven on air fry, actually, just for the air movement. But I set it at like 170 degrees or whatever the low setting is at, and left it in there for like an hour. And that did a really good job of actually drying them out pretty well. For the longer braces that are going to be here in the sub box, I can't fit that in the toaster oven, and we don't have I haven't bothered to try and order the part for our full size oven yet, because it's like an $18 igniter part, but when it went out was in the middle of the pandemic and supply chain issues and all kinds of problems, and so that $18 part was selling for like $130, and I was like, nah, I I don't need a full size oven that badly. So soon it'll probably get ordered because it is definitely nice, especially when baking breads and stuff, to have a full size oven. But um, yeah, not for 6 times what the part's actually supposed to be selling for. That's just crazy. So now, anyway, this is Emily's helping out. I'm doing some hole drilling, and then she is putting the screws in place to get them started and get it ready. And that saved quite a notable amount of time. And we're just the assembly is going to be the exact same. It's just the size and the shape is different. So like this is the top, and the top and the bottom boxes got rounded corners. I don't know why, honestly. Just style, design. It's kind of like the face lip. There's a lip around the front edge of the speakers that I always build. That does have a functional value of it lets the woofer actually be recessed back into the box a little bit, kind of protection for traveling and stuff like that. But mostly it's just an aesthetic thing, which is kind of odd because I'm not a fan of things that are aesthetic only. So aesthetics doesn't ever have a very high score when it comes to whether or not it's used. But I do like the look of that on my speaker boxes, and it's actually kind of a unique thing. So I built it on all of these boxes, and when I add to this system, I'll do the same thing. So here's what I was telling you about. I was just trying to figure out where to put the bracing. I wanted it to be pretty much the same distance from the edge of the woofer as the top of the box to the edge of the woofer. Because again, this particular brace is there specifically to provide that stability to the front and back of the speaker. And so then I had to figure out where that is on the speaker face and mark that on the front and back of both faces and both rears, so that we would know from the inside where to position that so that the brace was in the right spot, and then from the outside where to position it so we knew where to put the screws. And once we get all of those marked out and figured out, then it's a fairly quick matter of getting everything assembled. And I love the fact that Emily is willing to come out and help with projects. That's one of the things that that she's always been willing to do, is to come and do some dirty work, or do the hard work, and that's been a pretty awesome feature. There's another YouTube channel called Walnuts and Wineberries, and I've watched their videos for, well, as long as they've been producing them, actually. It's a family out on the East Coast, kind of, that is doing the same thing. They're a few steps ahead of us, but I always find it funny because he has the same value in his wife, and he likes to joke that everybody needs a Meg because his wife is Meg, and she'll come out and help him do stuff and get muddy and get dirty and whatever. And I used to joke with Emily that I don't need a Meg because I have an M. Here on the side, we were discussing the easiest way to do that, and we actually came up with the conclusion that it would be easier to attach this to the one side first, and then we could attach it to the other side and now have a place to set the back. On the full range boxes, I attached the braces differently, and it wasn't as, I mean, they were running a different direction though, so it changed how the construction went, but we had realized that the center braces, I never finished cutting them. I got them close, and then I knew I needed to trim them to the right size, so we had to pause the assembly and trim those down so that we could put them in position. But then this is what I was kind of saying, is that, you know, one of us needs to hold that in place with the glue on it, and then the other person can screw to actually lock it in place. So they had to be marked on both sides so that we could see where to do that. Just doing a dry fit there, and work. I mean, not surprisingly, it worked out exactly where we wanted it, so. The only real challenge that I had with the assembly process, aside from size and awkwardness, was just that I didn't account for the fact that the plywood is not actually 3/4 of an inch. It's 23/32 of an inch. Instead of 24/32. No, it's 22/32. Anyway, regardless, it's just shy of 3/4 of an inch, and for some reason I always forget to account for that when I'm drawing things out, so there is a little bit of tweaking. I had to go back through later and sand a few things down, and I used a router to clean a few things up and level those out. But that's okay. To be honest, if the box isn't perfectly square functionally, that's a good thing, because the whole point of the box is to contain the rear facing sound waves from being emanated out of the box. That's one of the reasons why speakers are positioned off-center intentionally, is so that the distance from the speaker to any given side is actually different, so it can't amplify sounds as well as it could if it was dead center. That's generally why boxes are a prism shaped instead of a cube. Is the same concept. So here we're running into a little issue where I realized that I messed up and cut a couple of these braces just a little bit shy of each other, and I decided I wanted to. I would rather have them be a broken piece than then stick out because I actually am using them for support. So I want them, the top and the bottom flush. And one of them was a little bit too long, so I don't remember why I didn't. Oh, I think I just cut it through the middle just because it was going to be easier to do that than it was to try and trim up the end. And these ones went pretty well for the most part. I mean, I just hold one end, put a screw in, while Emily holds the other end, and then I go to the other side and put that last screw in so that it locks the entire thing into place. And then I can go through the middle and put all the rest of the screws in without worrying about where it is. The rest of this process is pretty straightforward. And I still think that little screw tote is just the perfect thing for being able to put the glue in. One of these days I should just put some glue in it and close the lid and then see if it dries out. I don't think the lid is airtight. But I don't know, maybe it's airtight enough that it might last overnight or something. Who knows? I was kind of surprised actually. So the 3 holes in the back of this box are, the center one is the dish for the wiring, and then the 2 circles on the sides are are actually the vent. And it surprises me sometimes how small vent holes need to be. And I don't really know why I put it on the back this time, to be honest. I just thought it would be nicer to have the solid face, I guess, since cause the full range speaker boxes, those are actually all built for, well, I take it back, and that's part of the reason why the vent is smaller. None of this is built for extended bass. When you do build a sub box or a speaker box for extended bass, generally the vent is bigger and longer because it helps to amplify some of those bass frequencies. But all of these were built specifically for high fidelity in mind. So the full range boxes, they don't have a vent at all. And then the sub boxes, as you saw, they're pretty small vents. So now they're all done, and figured we'd send a picture to some friends and family for size comparison. And then there's that picture. So it's always a fun thing to have. Like, this is one of those points where the speaker process, it's like a pausing point where you're like, hey, look, this is actually a speaker box. It's recognizable now as a speaker box. Then comes the nasty part, and that's to glue them. Yeah, that's always a messy, challenging part. But yeah, it's and again, I love the fact that Emily's willing to come and help do stuff and work with me and whatnot. So we'll call that there for today, and thank you as always for watching. God bless you and yours, and I hope you stay safe and healthy out there.